It was past midnight in the towering glass building of Harlow Enterprises, the kind of place where ambition never slept. The 47th floor still glowed with the pale hum of computer screens, even as most of the city outside lay wrapped in darkness. Inside the CEO's corner office, a man named Daniel Harlow sat behind his desk, polished, precise, and cold, much like the life he'd built. His tie was loosened, but his eyes were sharp. Numbers filled his screen, numbers that measured success, profit, and everything he believed mattered. Until he saw him. Through the reflection on the glass wall, Daniel noticed the janitor. A thin, older man with silver hair, bent slightly at the shoulders, pushing his cart quietly down the corridor. His name tag read, Mr. Sam. Daniel had seen him before, countless times, mopping floors after everyone left, humming softly under his breath. He never spoke much, he just worked. Always with that faint, gentle smile that seemed oddly out of place in a world obsessed with speed and money. Daniel didn't know why, but that night, he watched the man longer than usual. Maybe it was the way Sam stopped for a moment, looking out the same window Daniel often stared through, at the endless city lights. There was something peaceful about him, something Daniel hadn't felt in years. The next morning, Daniel arrived early, unusual for him, and saw Sam again, polishing the marble floors of the lobby. "Morning, sir," Sam said, his voice low but kind. Daniel nodded. "You're here early." Sam chuckled softly. "Ah, these floors don't clean themselves, sir." There was no bitterness in his tone, no complaint. Just quiet pride. Over the next few weeks, Daniel found himself noticing Sam more often. Every morning, the same gentle rhythm of broom strokes. Every evening, the same soft hum echoing down the halls. One Friday night, Daniel's curiosity got the better of him. He asked the HR department to send him the payroll report. He didn't really know why. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he just wanted to see what this man earned after decades of loyal service. When the file landed on his desk, Daniel frowned. Sam's paycheck was barely enough to survive on, certainly not in a city like theirs. But what caught his eye was a line marked, automatic deduction. Half his paycheck. Gone every month. Daniel leaned closer. The deduction wasn't for debt, insurance, or taxes. It was a recurring donation. To an orphanage. He blinked, staring at the number. 50% of his modest salary. Gone. Every single month. He didn't believe it at first. He called the HR manager in. "Is this correct?" Daniel asked. The manager adjusted his glasses. "Yes, sir. Mr. Sam insisted on setting that up years ago. He's been donating to St. Mary's Orphan Home every month since 2012. Daniel leaned back silent. The sound of rain hitting the office windows filled the quiet. 2012. That was the same year Daniel had made his first million. He remembered the celebration, the champagne, the headlines, the ego. Meanwhile, this janitor had been giving half his paycheck away. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He drove to St. Mary's Orphan Home, a small brick building tucked between two warehouses. Through the fence, he saw kids playing in the dim courtyard, their laughter echoing into the cold air. And sitting among them on a worn wooden bench was Sam, the janitor. He wasn't in his uniform now. He was wearing an old sweater, his hands holding a toy truck as he played with one of the boys. The children surrounded him like sunlight. They laughed, tugged at his sleeves, hugged him as if he were family. Daniel stood there, frozen. The man who mopped his floors was father to those who had none. The next morning, Daniel asked his assistant to call Sam to his office. When Sam arrived, he looked uneasy, holding his cap in both hands. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I visited St. Mary's last night." Sam's face stiffened. "Oh. You've been donating half your paycheck there," Daniel said. "For more than a decade." Sam looked down at the floor, almost embarrassed. "It's not much, sir. Just what I can spare." "Half your paycheck isn't just what you can spare," Daniel said, his voice softer now. "Why would you do that?" Sam hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Because I grew up there," he said quietly. "St. Mary's took me in when my parents passed. I owe them my life. Those kids, they remind me of myself. I can't give them a fortune, sir. But I can give them hope." Daniel felt something shift inside him, a tightness in his chest he hadn't noticed before. "You could have kept the money for yourself," he said. Sam chuckled. "And buy what?" "Another pair of shoes." "I've got enough, sir. Sometimes enough is a blessing." Daniel didn't know what to say. The man standing before him had nothing, yet lived richer than most billionaires he knew. That afternoon, Daniel drove back to St. Mary's. This time, he went inside. The director, an older woman with gentle eyes, greeted him warmly. "Oh, you must be Mr. Harlow. Sam told us about you, did he?" Daniel asked. She smiled. "He never asks for recognition, but he's done more for these children than anyone else. When the roof leaked last winter, he fixed it himself. When we needed food, he brought groceries. Every Christmas, he plays Santa. The kids call him Papa Sam." Daniel walked through the orphanage. The peeling paint, the old furniture, the children's drawings pinned to the walls. He saw joy stitched into poverty, hope blooming from nothing. When he left, his chest felt heavy. Not from guilt, but from awakening. Over the next few months, something changed at Harlow Enterprises. The CEO, who once chased numbers, began noticing people. He started walking through the lower floors, talking to the cleaning staff, security guards, cafeteria workers, faces he'd never really seen before. One morning, he called an all-staff meeting. The employees gathered, curious. Daniel stepped up to the podium, his expression calm but sincere. "Most of you know me as the man who runs this company," he began. "But there's someone here who's been teaching me what leadership really looks like." He turned toward Sam, who stood near the back, still wearing his uniform, holding his mop. "This man," Daniel said, voice thick with emotion, "has done something extraordinary. Something no spreadsheet could ever measure." The crowd turned. Sam's face flushed red as Daniel continued. "For over a decade, he's been donating half of his paycheck to help children who have nothing. He's shown what real wealth is. Not money, but heart." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the entire floor erupted in applause. Tears welled in Sam's eyes as Daniel walked over and shook his hand. "I owe you an apology," Daniel said softly, "for not seeing you sooner. For not seeing people like you sooner." That evening, Daniel made a decision that would ripple far beyond his company. He established a new foundation, the Harlow Heart Initiative, pledging a portion of company profits to orphan care and educational programs. The first donation went to St. Mary's, but Daniel didn't announce it in his name. He put it under Sam's. Months later, Daniel visited the orphanage again. This time, the walls were repainted, the playground rebuilt, the classrooms bright and warm. Children ran around in new uniforms, their laughter filling the air. Sam was there, sitting under a tree, surrounded by kids as always. When he saw Daniel, he smiled. "You didn't have to do all this," Sam said quietly. Daniel smiled back. "You showed me how." For a long moment, they sat together, watching the children play. And in that quiet, Daniel realized something that had eluded him his whole life. That greatness wasn't in how high you climbed, but how deeply you cared. The man who had swept his floors had swept the dust off his soul.